I'm John Law, this is Chasing Cars, and this is the 2020 Honda Civic sedan. For 2020, Honda have updated the Civic range to add features to bring it into line with some of its competitors like the Toyota Corolla sedan and also the Hyundai Elantra. Those include pretty much the Honda Sensing Safety Suite, which includes all the goodies, AEB and adaptive cruise control across the whole range of models from VTI to VTI LX, the range topping model. Now this model we have here is the RS, which sits one down from the VTI LX and is the only model in the range to sort of divert from the VTI dash other letters in its naming structure. It's the RS. It's kind of designed as a sporty model. That means it gets this unique Phoenix orange colorway, so if you see one out on the road in this color, that's why. It's also got the little RS badging on the exclusive piano black front grille. The other cars have chrome, and it's also got a set of 18-inch wheels shot in some fairly sticky Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tires. Now apart from that, there isn't really anything done to this car to make it any more sporting, but let's see how the chassis handles those grippy tires. But first, we're going to jump into the interior and check out this car's party piece, its practicality and spaciousness. Now, if you enjoy videos and content like this, make sure you let me know in the comment section down below. Of course, while you're down there, make sure you hit subscribe and the bell icon so you never miss any of our full-length video car reviews. Now on to the interior of the Civic. So what's it like inside the Civic RS sedan? Well, it definitely feels the price that's being asked for it on the inside a little bit more. There is soft touch sort of materials up on the top of the dashboard. However, anything that you actually want to be soft touch is hard touch. So this big center console is all very scratchy plastics and it's not that well screwed together. Similarly, the steering wheel, although leather wrapped, feels a little bit cheap in the hands. It doesn't make any horrible creaking noises, but during driving, we did notice that there seems to be some plastic movement coming from around the center area, so it doesn't feel particularly amazing in here in terms of that. The dials ahead of you are a really cool way to integrate sort of digital and analog dials, in my opinion. You've got a big circular digital rev counter with a simple speed readout, which works really well. It's nice and clear. It's also set in cool, like a sort of fighter jet e-dash style thing. My personal favorite touch on the interior is actually the temperature and fuel gauges. There's a really cool bar system. It works very nicely. Now the seats, they've got this cool kind of checkerboard AE86 then red stitching kind of thing going on, which feels kind of cool, kind of Japanese early 2000s-y. You make your decision. They're sort of a leatherette fabric and they're very squishy, very comfortable. They add sort of an extra layer of cushion to the ride. Likewise, most of the things in here are quite comfortable to use. So this big armrest here, the right side armrest on the door does get a little painful after a while because there's no actual padding, it's just some softer leather, but not a big deal. It's like that on a lot of cars. The big trump card in the Civic is the excellent storage space. So you've got this upper deck here for your phone. It's got space for your USB cable to come through. Down there you've got a 12-volt socket and you've also got another USB port down there. You've also got this extra storage space down here, which is good for sunglasses and wallets and that sort of stuff. Moving on, you've got two cup holders in this adjustable armrest center bin here and plenty of extra storage space and another USB socket. It's really great. And you've got big door bins, enough space for a water bottle, so it works nicely in here. The updates for 2020 pretty much include the volume knob here. That wasn't available on the previous year model, but they put that in to make it a little bit easier to adjust the volume. Not to say that there's not enough ways to do it here on the steering wheel, but it's nice for a passenger to be able to adjust the volume. In the center, you've got this touchscreen here, which looks pretty low res. It's really not the best out there on the market at the moment. The Volkswagen Golf 8 will put this to absolute shame when it comes out. However, it works well enough. There is a notable omission of sat-nav here. You have to rely on your Apple CarPlay or Android Auto with Google Maps to do any navigation. To me, that's a bit crappy in Australia, where a lot of the time you might be driving in places without any proper mobile reception. That's where a proper satellite system is nice to have. But hey-ho, that is how it is. You've also got a couple of extra creature comforts in here, notably heated seats, and you've obviously got dual zone climate control, which is controlled through the infotainment system. However, for 2020, Honda have also added the buttons down here to get a shortcut to that, so it's not quite as annoying as it used to be. So the back seat of the Civic sedan is where this car really plays its party trick. It's massive back here. I've been roasted in the comments section before about being too tall for a back seat, but at 6'2", behind my own driving position, I have very, very adequate knee room. They don't even touch, even fully stretched out. very decent toe room under the seat in front as well. And I've also got a pretty reasonable amount of headroom for a sloping roof car like this. And because I've got so much knee room, I can slump down and be very comfortable back here. As for amenities, the seat back itself is very, very squishy. It's very soft. The squab is good. It's lacking under thigh support, but that's to be expected. I've got a mat pocket in the passenger side seat, and then I've obviously got a flip down armrest with cup holders here. It sits a little bit low, but it's very, very soft, and it feels quite luxurious. Likewise, the carpet down here is good, though there is a hump in the floor. The width of this car means it should be pretty decent for 3 people wide, but that hump means it might not be quite perfect. You've obviously got grab handles back here and a little door bin for your bottle and all that sort of stuff. So around the back of the Civic sedan, it's probably best described as a car that is a bit of a mullet, although a slightly lame mullet, with business at the front and party at the back, because there's so much space back here. Obviously the rear seats, but also this boot is massive. It's 540 litres, which is by far the biggest in this sort of segment. And it also troubles cars in the segment up, like the Toyota Camry and larger sedans. Let's pop that boot, which is manually operated, though it's nice and light. And inside you find not really much at all. There's a lot of carpet in there. There's no netting, there's no curry hooks or bag hooks or anything like that to secure any of your stuff. There's not really any underfloor storage either. There is a little convenience of having the pull tabs to drop the rear seats, which you then got to go in and push, which is nice. It means you can carry big objects, say a bicycle or some IKEA furniture, very nicely in this car. However, those big objects are a little bit difficult to load because, being a sedan, it has a slightly narrow aperture and also a very, very big load lip, which you've got to throw stuff over to avoid scratching the bejeebus out of this rear bar. Now let's close this boot lid, at which point you'll find that that's a very cheap sound, because this fake rear wing, which has got a brake light in it, isn't very well attached. It's not a Civic Type R after all, it is just the RS, and this wing is just pretty much for looks. So you can understand it being a little bit flimsy. So now we come to the driving experience of the 2020 Civic Sedan RS, and it's pretty decent, to be honest. It's a very well-rounded car. Now there's a couple of detractors from this. Mainly I find the steering to be completely devoid of all feel. I feel like Kirk Van Houten asking to borrow a feeling. It's not very good. I wish the engineers had built in something so that I could actually feel the grip levels of the front tyres. But that's a personal preference thing. I think a lot of people don't really care about steering feel, and the actual weighting and ratio of the steering is very easy to get used to, and it's quite a natural system to use. It just doesn't give any of that feedback that I sort of crave from a car. Now the standout feature on this car has got to be its low speed ride. It's super comfortable around the city. It's a combination of a very softly sprung and damped setup, much more so than a lot of its rivals, which seem to be focusing on a sportier performance nature. And the long wheelbase of the sedan model. It feels very flat, it feels very, very composed at low speeds, and it rides bumps with sort of all 4 wheels. It's impressive, and it means passengers will enjoy their time in the Civic, I reckon, and the driver will enjoy their experience most of the time as well. However, throw it into a couple of corners with some bumps, and you'll find that the softly sprung and damped setup actually doesn't work too hard against you on smooth surfaces and sort of rough but consistent surfaces. But what happens is you hit a couple of mid-corner bumps in succession, you get a slightly corkscrew feel to the suspension, and that's kind of just going to be par for the course with a inexpensive damper setup that's trying to achieve comfort, certainly over sporting prowess, that the Michelin Pilot Sport 4s might otherwise suggest. It's definitely not a hot hatch, and that is sort of bolstered by the 4-cylinder 1.5 litre engine up front. Outputs are 127 kilowatts and 220 newton meters, which makes this car feel pretty peppy, especially in the turbocharged way. It's got a pretty cool little boost gauge you can set up ahead of you, which I've got going on. It tells you how many bars of boost you're going on with the little thingos. It looks good. And it feels peppy in the mid-range, combined with the CVT, which, no manual gearbox. We don't get the Civic Si like you guys in America do, and here in Australia, that makes me very jealous, because I think that this engine with a little 6-speed manual and a little bit of extra kilowatts under its belt would be a really fun thing to use. However, you do have paddles behind the steering wheel to sort of select faux ratios with this CVT gearbox, and you've also got a sport mode here, which oddly you have to press the button to get into. Don't like that, because you can easily pop it into drive and then neutral on the auto gearbox. Feels a little bit cheap, but yeah, it works well, and above 100 k's an hour on the freeway. It doesn't have much go above that, but around town it feels pretty peppy and you can beat most people off the lights. Now, the general experience on a back road is pretty excellent as well. It's a very four-square car. It feels like a classic independently suspended hatchback. It's great. It's a very safe car, and that safety is bolstered again by the inclusion of Honda's sensing suite of active safety features. That means that the RS, which is second from the top at 34.5 grand, but also all of the other VTI to VTI LX models in the Civic range come with adaptive cruise control, true high-speed AEB. You've got adaptive cruise that goes to low speeds as well, which is a great help in traffic in Sydney. You've also got rear cross traffic alert, a camera system, reversing camera system, and also a pretty nifty little camera system that shows your blind spot in the mirror on the infotainment system, which works great. The only couple of gripes I've got apart from that are the fact that this car feels a little bit poorly built. It feels the price that you pay for it. On a rough road and around the city, you can sometimes hear all the plastics kind of creaking under load, and it doesn't feel quite as premium as some of its rivals per se, but it's not trying to be super premium. It's trying to be a car that's very comfortable, easy to drive, simply laid out, and super spacious in the rear end. So I think for its intended purpose, the Civic is a really cool car. Just don't expect the RS to be any sort of super hot hatch or mini type R. So those are our detailed impressions of the 2020 Honda Civic sedan. This RS trim looks great in this bespoke colorway. The 18-inch wheels look pretty cool, although they do add a little harshness to the ride. Generally speaking though, it's a great riding car, and it's awesome if you need to carry lots of people. It would make the perfect Uber car. The rear seats are seriously spacious, and that 540 litre boot capacity is massive for this class. Now, the driving dynamics aren't quite as exciting as you get in a Toyota Corolla. It's a very four-square car on the road, but that might suit some people. It's seriously safe and it won't let you down on a twisty road. I reckon it's a pretty good little car at this price. Now, let me know what you think of the latest Honda Civic in the comments down below. While you're down there, hit like and make sure you hit subscribe and the bell icon so you never miss any of our full-length Australian video car reviews. As always, thanks for watching Chasing Cars.